What's up, guys? So today we're going to be reviewing a target bow here. Before we get into that though, I do want you to head on over to InsideOutPrecision.com if you choose to. Check out all the merch we have. I actually have some merchandise in the shop here at the Bow Rack. So if you go to the Bow Rack Instagram page, I think Lisa has the hats up online. If not, you can call, we can send you pictures of the ones we have. But lots of cool merch there. If you guys help support the channel, that helps us bring you guys content, and we really appreciate all of the support and love and feedback that we've been getting. So remember, head on over to InsideOutPrecision.com and get yourself some swag. I am gonna get this vise set up, get this bow in here, and we're gonna do a review. PSE RTX 37. I swear they have like a competition to see who can make the most complicated longest name on these bows. I actually got this bow a little while ago and I just haven't really had a chance to put it through the paces. I just got back from hunting in Maui, which was incredible. So most of my shooting has been done with my hunting bow for the last couple months, just getting in preparation for that. But I was really excited. I did set this up and shoot it a little bit, but just the last couple days I've really been playing with this and trying to get things dialed just the way I like them. It always takes me a little bit to kind of learn a bow, and I'm still not, I'm sure, even close to where it's going to end up. But I want to go over the specs on this thing. I'm not going to do the speed test because it's a target bow. Like, nobody's going to be shooting real heavy arrows with it. If you are shooting a heavy arrow, it's probably an indoor arrow and speed doesn't matter. Really what we're concerned with are the features that make this bow shoot really well. So this is the 37. They do make it in a 40-inch model as well. It comes with two different cam configurations. So it is the Evolve cam system that's been on like all their EVLs and everything. This is the SE cam. In this cam configuration, this bow has a 7-inch brace height. IBO's at 326, so pretty much right on par with most target bows. You can get it in a 65 or 65, 70 or 70% let off, and just like on their hunting models, that's just done with this little thing on the cam here. Right now I'm shooting it at 75. I'm gonna play around with that. I think I'll probably end up at 70, but right now I'm playing with it at 75. In the SE cam, you can only get it in a 50-pound peak weight or 60-pound peak weight. So it's not gonna work for those of you who are trying to shoot like 30 or 40 pounds. However, in the EM cam, you can get it down really low, and I'll go over those specs in a minute. And so what I like about this bow is, so you notice it's got the D-Flex riser. That is a very stable platform. I'll get into that more in just a little bit here. But that was the first thing I noticed when I shot this bow is how well it held. So back to the specs, sorry, kind of getting sidetracked there. The EM cam is gonna run in shorter draw lengths. It does have a little bit shorter brace height. It's gonna come in at a 6 5/8 inch brace height. It is a little bit faster in its IBO rating. It's 332, but it only comes at a 75% let off option. So if you wanna shoot less let off, you don't have that option. But it will go down to a 40-pound peak weight. So if you're like a woman or a youth and you only want to shoot a 40-pound peak weight, you can get it in a 40, 50, or 60-pound peak weight, and the draw lengths will go from 22.5 to 28.5, whereas on the SE cam it'll go from 26.5 to 32. So you can really get this bow to fit pretty much anybody. So lots of options there with the cams, just kind of depending on what you're looking for, which is nice. But getting into some of the other features of this bow, so this is basically built off of the Supra platform. So the Supra had the well, there's a couple different models, but the most popular one had the caged riser here. They got rid of the caged riser, just made it a little more streamlined, lightened up that riser just a little bit. It does have their new wider limb pocket, a little beefier axle in it, which all that stuff is just going to help add to stability, and that's the whole goal of a target bow. Still got all the stabilizer mounting holes. So sorry, I got all these bows above me. You got the lower one here, the upper one, and then the rear mount in the back here. So lots of options to play around with your stabilizers and make them make that bow aim and respond however you want it to, which is really nice. In addition, it has the different holes here to mount. It's kind of hard to see here, but there's a couple different options to mount your sight there. I have a fairly low peep height, so I run my sight down. That allows me to get this sight higher up, which gives me more travel until I hit my arrow, basically. So lots of options for mounting there. You got the two different rest holes to mount through. So I'm actually in the rear one. It's kind of hard to see there. And I'm shooting this with a blade. I originally set it up with a Hamskea, but I'm shooting my pro comps out of this. And the launcher that I had on the Hamskea was the hunting launcher, and it was just too stiff of a launcher. I just get kind of weird misses with it. So I went back to the blade. It's shooting great. This is an 8 thou blade because my arrows are only 360 grains. I'm shooting the Pro Comp 340s. They're cut to like 28 inches, 120 grains up front. And so far they seem to be shooting really well. So back to some of the things I like about this bow. So you will notice the deflex riser, meaning that the front of the grip here is actually in front of the limb pockets. Now what that does, besides look kind of funny, I mean, this bow, in my opinion, this bow is not winning any beauty pageants, but again, I care about how it shoots, not how it looks. But what a deflex riser does is it takes more grip pressure essentially to get the bow to torque. So in target archery, where forgiveness is everything, like we want a bow that's forgiving, you're not going to see bows with a lot of reflex. So reflex would be like the Matthews V3, where the grip is behind the limb pockets here. Because the more reflex you have in a bow, the easier or the less grip pressure it takes to torque it. So just for ease of numbers here, let's say I put 2 pounds of grip pressure on the left side of this grip, maybe I'll miss 1.5 inches at 20 yards. If I put 2 pounds of grip pressure on the V3X, I might miss 3.5 or 4 inches. So it gives you a little more wiggle room with your form, but it's still a really responsive bow. It's not the smoothest bow in the world in terms of like hand shock and stuff, especially coming from shooting my V3X and the EVL34. The first few arrows through this, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. But after you shoot a little bit, you kind of don't notice it. And again, it's a target bow. It doesn't need to be quiet. It doesn't need to be smooth. I'm not spooking any targets when the bow goes off. I really look for how a bow aims and basically the forgiveness of a bow when I'm looking at a target bow. I actually have the aftermarket. This is the titanium archery product cable guard here. If there's one issue that PSE has kind of had, I've noticed that the carbon ones that they come with over time actually weaken and will move a little bit. So titanium archery products makes these titanium ones. They go on there, they don't bend at all, and they will stay in the exact same position over time. So kind of back to the brace height thing. Or the brace height and the reflex. When people say that a bow with a higher brace height is more forgiving, lots of people confuse that with, they think because the brace height is higher, the arrow gets off the string sooner. But you're talking such micro fractions of a second that's not what makes it more forgiving. What makes it more forgiving is like the limb length and where the string comes down is going to be the same on a bow that has, like if you have two models of a bow, like the V3X 29 and a V3X, or let's use the PSEs since it's a video on PSEs, like the EVL 34 and the EVL 32. It's the same limb and the same cam, but the EVL 34 has less reflex in the riser, meaning the riser is straighter. When the riser is straighter, again, it comes back to that pressure on the grip not affecting the shot as much. So that's why all the target bows you see, whether it's Matthews, Hoyts, PSEs, they're going to be longer axle to axle, which helps them aim better, and that riser is generally going to have very little reflex to it, again making it more forgiving. What I noticed shooting this bow right away is the way it aimed. It settled on target really quick. Even I just kind of slapped the stabilizers on there at first. I'm still playing around with the different weights and stuff, but it's holding really well for me. It tuned well through paper. Now it is going to use the same shim system that all their other Evolve cams use. It's a great system once you get it tuned. I'm just going to call a spade a spade. it's kind of a pain in the butt if you have to move those shims. You can try to do it in the press, but there's so little room in there that generally what I do is I'll put it in the press, you know, relax the string, pull the main string off, then actually unhook the cables on either side here and just kind of put them through these little holes in the riser so they don't untwist. And then I'll actually completely relax the limbs, take the bow out of the press, and then take off the C-clips and literally just take the cam off and move the spacers around, put it back together, put it back in the press. I've gotten pretty good at it. I can do it, you know, if I got to do top and bottom shims, I can do it in about 10 minutes. If you've never done it before, you might be in for a half hour to get those shims moved. So it is kind of a pain in the butt, but it seems to stay in tune really well once you get it. Now, I'm generally speaking, if I'm not moving, or if I only have, you know, if I'm only tearing through paper like 3/16 of an inch right or left, I'll either move my rest just a tiny bit inside or outside of center to see if that clears it up. And if that doesn't, you can use, just like on, if you watch my EVL and all their Evo videos, you can use the yokes here. This is not a floating yoke, it's woven through this little harness here. And just like you would tune, you know, a split yoke on a Hoyt, I can actually add twists to the right or left yoke to micro adjust a tear through paper. With this one, I didn't really have to do anything left, right. I was a little bit tail low on the first couple shots, so I just raised my knock point like, I don't know, 3/32 of an inch, and it came right into, I generally tune mine a little bit tail high when I'm shooting a blade like this because I don't want those veins smashing into the blade. I want them to kind of lift off. So I've got this tuned about, it's probably ripping about 3/8 of an inch, just straight tail high. I haven't got a chance to really stretch this out at distance. You know, I've shot it at like, shot it out to 40 yards here. Seemed to be grouping well when I did my part. And so, you know, I'll play around with that rest position a little bit more. On a target bow, you can get away not shooting a bullet hole and group tuning, which if you haven't seen my video on that, I have one. It's a few videos back. But yeah, I'm impressed with this bow. Like I said, they do make this in a 40-inch model. For me, just like the string angle of the 37 was more comfortable. I'm shooting this at 30 inches. You know, it draws really smooth. One thing that I've noticed on this, so the back wall, and I don't know why this is, I don't know if it's just the serving that's on these stock strings, I'll probably end up replacing them. It's got just, it's solid, but it has a little bit more sponge to it than it feels like it does on my EVL. That might just be the geometry of the bow. I mean, it's the same cam, so I'm surprised it feels any different. I actually like that little bit of sponge because, you know, I shoot with quite a bit of back tension. I pull pretty hard into that wall. And if I have nothing, if there's zero give there at all, if there's nothing to pull into, I tend to just kind of pull my front arm around and I just get this kind of like jittery float. So I actually like just that tiny little bit of sponge. I think it's really comfortable. It's still really consistent. It's not like I can, you know, sit there and do this with it. It's just that, you know, like 1/8 of an inch give. And for me, it's a really comfortable bow to shoot. You know, if you've watched my other videos, you know I'm not a fan of limb stops. I hate limb stops. You know, I'm always going to shoot a cable stop. And you know, this bow definitely has a little more sponge than what I'm used to compared, I was shooting the TRX 36 before this. It's got a little more sponge to it than that. But like I said, it's a really comfortable bow to shoot. So another cool thing about this bow is it is considerably less money. Well, I shouldn't say considerably, but it's about $300 cheaper than most of the other target bows out there. A lot of those target bows now are $1,800–1,900 bucks. I think this bow is like $1,475 or $1,550, probably depending on where you're getting it from. And that's not because it's any less quality. I think there's just not as much riser material here as a lot of the bows now that have all the caged risers and stuff. So I think it's a great deal. Like I said, if I could change one thing, it would be make it a little bit smoother on the shot. I think it was more just of a shock after, you know, shooting my EVL and my V3X to shooting this. You know, it's a target bow, and it definitely has a pretty good little dunk when you shoot it, especially if you don't have any stabilizers on it. Definitely put stabilizers on this before you shoot it. So yeah, I'm curious if that'll kind of tone down a little bit, maybe with some new strings. These are just the stock strings. I figured I'd kind of tinker with this a little bit to see if it's something I want to keep shooting before I invest in new strings. But highly recommend getting down to your PSE dealer. It's hard to try out target bows. Not a lot of dealers are going to have target bows in stock to shoot, unfortunately. But if you know somebody at your local range maybe or something like that who's got one, you know, talk to them, see how they like it. Worst case scenario, you buy it and you don't like it and you sell it for, you know, 200 bucks less than you bought it for and get into something else. But thanks for watching today, guys. Again, this is the PSE Supra RTX 37. Why are these names so long? We really appreciate all the feedback. Remember to hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Hit that notification bell, all of the above. Remember, precision is a decision. Keep them in the middle, and I'll see you on the range.